This is the Bonus Section Podcast, episode number 83. Why are you so hard on yourself? Are you the type of person that knows you were meant for something greater in this lifetime, and that somewhere inside of you, there's just this bigger version trying to break through? But in spite of all your self-development, you just can't seem to find the way up there. Well, then, hey, you're definitely in the right place. I'm Danny Griffin, the founder of The Bonus Section and the host of this podcast, and a person just like you, trying to learn how to live the most fulfilling life possible. Now, to help you take immediate action to get moving in a better direction, we take all the notes from each episode and we post them at freethinkingtools.com. So let's get started in this one. Why, folks, are you so dang hard on yourself? I see this every single week in all of my coaching capacities. It's really just hard to see. And I suffer from this disease from time to time myself, and that's why I wanted to talk about it, okay? So the first point here is just to admit, all right, well, judging ourselves, which is where getting into being so hard on yourself comes from. Judging ourselves is something that we just can't eliminate. And nor do we really want to. It gives us a consciousness of where we stand in life. Are we surviving at a very animalistic level? Judging our ability to survive is probably a pretty important thing. But it's when it gets into the more qualitative parts of our life and we're really hard on how we're performing in life, especially against others. And that's the next point here that I think is really a heavy point. We always seem to be measuring our lives against somebody else rather than in our own ideal that we set. See, I think that's the hardest part of this and why we put ourselves down. Think about this. If you want to be a professional athlete, so you grow up as a kid watching all of these professional athletes be successful, and as you go forward looking at these athletes, you start to climb this ladder, and it's always about how are you doing against them? And you're looking at an extreme result, trying to become that. And that gap is huge. So when you look at that, the minute that you look at that ideal, which is not yours, all of a sudden you don't get there, or there's a setback. And you presume that that person who's performing at that elite level never had setbacks? Come on, that's just not reality. That's ridiculous. See, and this is why what's interesting about this world of content, there are a lot of people that are beginning to humanize. They realize the power to their personal brand is to humanize their journey and to tell you about all the pain and suffering and lowlights that they got through, because then you can say, oh, wait a minute, that's me. So you see, you have to be very careful of a polished ideal that is somebody else's. Because that's all you're seeing. You're seeing the very well-edited video. You're seeing everything without mistakes. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I make a mistake, right? When I started this podcast, I realized there was something in the way and I knocked it on the ground, right? I mean, there's just a reality as to how goofy and ugly life is for everybody. You don't really think that everybody has this greased skids life and they're so lucky and everything's so peachy. You have no idea. But the minute that you perceive that life is easy for successful people, that's when you start this weird self-judgment. Rather than saying, all right, that's the coolest thing, and celebrating, and celebrating realistically, I bet that person really had some struggles. And I bet they really had to overcome some interesting stuff. And maybe if I can get in a Q&A on one of their webinars, or I can post on one of their social sites, tell me about your biggest struggle. And then maybe they'll humanize, maybe they won't. Then you'll realize that they're just like you in some form or fashion, only they're further down the road, they've persevered, they've overcome, and they stuck with it. That's the coolest thing you can learn, is how people overcame their struggle. So once you start to get realistic about those ideals that are not yours, you can more so create your own ideal. What would it be like to be really good at something in your mind's eye? What does that look like for you? And see, that's the coolest thing about the imagination, is that you have some concept of these other ideals that are in the same lane, sports, academics, whatever. I could go on and on. You know what I mean? That's the thing you love. That's your passion. You want to make a living doing that thing. And so you start to move there. But what does your ideal for you look like? When someday you arrive at this thing that feels so fulfilling, I would feel so fulfilled, and I would feel like I'm in the right direction. Because look, you never really get there. Because when you get a little bit of, of momentum, something corrects you in a different direction, moves you off course, and you're there. Some people argue that this pursuit of happiness is a joke. It's like, how do you ever really get happy in a world that's always has headwinds in your face? Sometimes there are tailwinds and you feel light and happy. Other times there are headwinds, and you can make that a positive by persevering and leaning in when that dog bites, per se, and making that a game worth playing. So measuring yourself against your own ideal while getting some inspiration from others is really the game worth playing. That's the one. Because the danger is being unrealistic about other people's struggles that are successful, so that you come back and you really start to beat yourself up. And that's the third point here. The game of chasing your ideal is supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be a source of constant put down. Oh, I did this and I failed. See them? They're succeeding. I did this and I failed. I'll never get to this ideal. That's not a game worth playing. That's not. If every time that you move, and by the way, I'm going to tell you a key foundation to this argument about self-put down. If you are doing something you really don't want to do, if you're chasing a goal that your heart really doesn't want to, if you're compromising, if you're in a job that there's just a lot of money and you just keep going and you wonder why you're miserable and you wonder why you're putting yourself down, what? That sucks. That's the worst pursuit. To pursue something that makes you miserable because you think it gives you prestige, it gives you money, it gives you access, it gives you something what? Something that doesn't matter to you. So you wonder why you're putting yourself down, even when by some measures, you're successful. I saw something, Vitalik Buterin, who's the founder of Ethereum, the digital currency, a really digital platform. He said, someday wouldn't it be great if we had some more utopianistic pursuit where getting a super yacht was not the thing that we did with our money. Instead, we positively affected the world. That's what we mean by these positive ideals that we can create for ourselves by using our imagination and our hearts. That's a fun game. That's really, by the way, that's really self-fulfilling. If you can get away from the trap of all these materialistic pulls and all of that, I think it gets easier to not feel like you want to put yourself down, that you're far less miserable, that the struggle is more fun, right? It is. I mean, look, if everything's so dang easy, there's no struggle, it doesn't keep you there. You're getting fat and happy on a beach by getting out of shape. How many people retire only to die shortly thereafter because there's no more struggle, there's no more headwind, there's no more game worth playing, there's no new idealistic them, right? Hey, maybe you achieved everything where you could physically do it as an athlete or a business person. Well, now are you somebody, I like to call them old heads with wisdom? Are you passing that on to the next generation? You're encouraging them. I mean, there's so much life out there. And if it's fun, you're not going to find yourself putting yourself down. Now, here's the bonus section of this podcast today. One of the things I think you have to be aware of is something my sister turned me on to a long time ago. She's a special needs teacher and has done a fabulous job of being a person for others her entire life. So she shared this with me, and it was beware of cognitive distortions. Cognitive distortions. The way that we see the world in our own world, in this case, in this podcast, in a distorted way. Because there are all these very simple cognitive distortions that throw us off. So what you want to do is go Google this. List of cognitive distortions. If you do nothing else from this podcast, Google or go search, however you search, list of cognitive distortions. I did that after she told me this. And it was a really weird, simple list of really over-exaggeration. That was the general theme of these cognitive distortions. All or nothing thinking, over-aggrandizing something, and in other words, making it bigger than it should be. And if you learn that list, you see how most of them feed this self-put-down. They're these things that are just real and they're immutable. In other words, you can't break them. They don't go away. They're part of this whole process. So if you become aware of them and then you go back to this game of pursuing your own ideal with inspiration from the outside, all of the ups and downs of that pursuit are more palatable. You can survive them versus blowing yourself up. All right, let me go back and summarize this. Why are you so hard on yourself? Please stop doing this. But in order to do that, first point is judging ourselves is something that we can't eliminate. So you're going to continue to do that because at a base animalistic way, you have to survive. So you better judge how you're surviving. 2, measuring our lives against our own ideal for ourselves. Use your imagination for this ideal life. It's much safer than measuring yourself against somebody else's ideal or where somebody already is, because they have so much reality that you're not aware of, but you are aware of yours. 3, the game of chasing your ideal is supposed to be fun, not a source of constant self-put-down. Make it a game worth playing. That out there, there's this ideal thing that you keep pursuing. Yes, it changes. Yes, you get blown off course. But have fun making those adjustments. Be curious. Play the game like a kid. And 4, the bonus section of the Bonus Section podcast, beware of cognitive distortions. Go Google and learn the list of cognitive distortions to see how they feed self-put-down. All right, I'll summarize it this way. Judging ourselves seems to be a part of the human condition that we won't ever be able to eliminate, so we have to harness it as a positive tool. The key is to set a clear vision for our ideal version of our own life and pursue that as a game worth playing. The caveat, though, is to beware of cognitive distortions that will cause you to fall into a state of self-put-down, where you might fall very far off course and away from the reality of how good your life actually is. Hey, remember, you can take immediate action to get moving in a better direction towards your goals because we take all the notes from each episode and we post them for a short period of time at freethinkingtools.com. I don't want to leave them all up there because you'll do nothing with them. So I leave a couple episodes, the most recent. freethinkingtools.com, because that's what my notes from the podcast are. They're there to help you think for free. And we give you instant access, so head on over. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen. We also post all of our content on YouTube, so don't forget to subscribe to the Bonus Section channel. Get over there. Click on that notification, that little bell, and you'll know when we put one of these up there each week. We also appreciate it if you join our mission of becoming people for others and share our content with other people just like you so that they get the help that they need because of you. Do something for somebody else. It's the highest calling. Remember, we sign off the podcast the same way every time. Nobody's coming for you. Absolutely nobody. So go get to work on yourself and a better plan for your goals, and we'll see you in the next episode to help you do just that. Thanks again.